I would have been a lot more selective when choosing my CPA. The CPA that I have now, I think understands my business and small business in general, and is helping me plan better. And, with those kinds of reminders about, oh, quarterly taxes and just those sorts of things. Um, so whereas I made a decision about, I thought that it was necessary to have a CPA that was in close proximity to me when really it wasn't. And that kind of hurt me my first year.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of The Inventive Founder, if I don't get too tongue-tied. This is your host, Devin Miller, the serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups in the 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Now, today we've got another great guest on the podcast, Angela Thurman. And Angela, her founding journey started when she was looking or getting out of an aerospace job, and was trying to decide if she would go take another job, long commute, whether or not she wanted to do that after it was with a good company, Boeing, and decided didn't want to do the long commute, decided to start doing contract work and turn that contract work into a business. And then from that business, built it out and launched some products and some services, and has been doing that ever since. So with that much as an introduction, welcome on the podcast, Angela.
Well, thank you, Devin. Pleasure to be here.
Well, excited to have you on. So I gave kind of a quick walkthrough of the founding journey. Now, before we dive into unpacking it a bit, just as a reminder to the audience, Angela's been on a couple of our other podcasts, or our sister podcasts, so both the Inventive Journey and the Inventive Expert. So definitely encourage everybody to go check out those episodes. But now, as we focus a little bit more on how you went about founding the current business and how that part of the journey got going. Walk us through a little bit as to how it got started working at I think it was an aerospace job, and deciding that, or getting let go, and kind of kicking off the founding of your business from there.
Well, that's it pretty much in a nutshell. I'm an electrical engineer, and I've got 30 plus years in technical project management, both in aerospace and telecommunications. And I had been with my former employer for over 10 years and worked a lot of great, amazing projects, both for Boeing and Airbus and some of the smaller OEMs, and had the opportunity to travel a lot, learned a lot about lean manufacturing, supplier management, and really had the opportunity to exercise my project management skills in aerospace, which of course is a highly regulated industry. I really enjoyed that work, but with the advent of COVID, the aviation industry as a whole really felt the impacts of COVID. And at one point, Boeing shut down the 787 production line altogether. And so my company was impacted, and certainly I was. And like many other people, I found myself without a job at the end of 2020. And so I took some time and looked around, and since I'm here in Houston, this is a great city, lots of economic growth, lots of different industries. But with my focus, a lot of that aerospace activity is centralized around the NASA Johnson Space Center. And that is more than an hour's commute one way from
Hmm.
where I live. And at that point, I'd been working from home for over 8 years before COVID even started. And I'm very accustomed to my my home office, working from home. I have now 3 little dogs that had been used to having me at home every day at their beck and call. And when I considered what it would mean, what kind of change in my lifestyle would be needed for me to resume a work schedule that would involve the kind of commute I was looking at, I just decided this is just not something that I want for my life. And so I decided I'm going to look for something different. And at that time, a contract job came up for a software company that's based in Europe. And I thought, well, that's great. We'll give this a shot. And they had a requirement that their ERP system could only pay out to corporate organizations.
Hmm.
And so I had to form an LLC for them to even be able to pay me. So I thought, well, that's not such a bad deal. Maybe I should consider this. And so I did. I formed an LLC, and eventually I hired an assistant, and then I brought on more PMs. And in the last 2.5 years, I've just decided to add more types of work. And most recently, we've expanded to include project management training. And so in the next couple of weeks, we'll be launching our own learning management system from our website. So I'm very excited about that.
No, I think that sounds like a lot of exciting things that definitely going on. Now let's if we rewind and unpack that just a little bit. So you
Mhm.
are, so you got let go. Hey, travel industry as a whole, including air travel and airplanes and that got hit hard by COVID because people weren't going out as much. So definitely understand. So, but you also, I think you'd mentioned that, you had a job opportunity, had to travel a lot, didn't want to do that. So you picked up the consulting work. Now,
Mhm.
when you got into the consulting work, was it just things that were in your industry and kind of intended to be, although you had to do an LLC in order to qualify, was that the
Mhm.
long-term kind of goal of, hey, I'm going to continue to do contract work, or is it, hey, I'll do contract work while I'm waiting to find that job that's closer to home that I'll kind of do full time? What was that initial intent?
Well, initially, I was referred to this German software company uh, by by a dear friend, and the project itself uh, was more in the business development area.
Hmm.
But for me, project management is project management. You come to the table with a skill set, and you apply those skills regardless of what the project is. So so I knew that the project had, like every project, it has a definite limit. It's temporary. And but once I was engaged, then then immediately another contract opportunity came up, and I thought, it was at that point that I thought, hey, maybe this contract um, project management would be an okay thing, would be a way to make a living. And so that's when I kind of decided I want to do this as a business and not necessarily look for employment with a large or even a small company.
Hmm.
And the more I thought about it, I realized that even small to medium sized organizations had projects that needed to be served, and they didn't really have those resources internally. So I felt that there was an opportunity. there was a niche in the industry, in the project management industry, if you will, that needed to be served.
No, it makes perfect sense. So now, so you get into that and you say, okay, here's an opportunity here. There's, kind of the unmet need, so to speak, of a lot of people, or a lot of industries and businesses have that, hey, we don't need somebody probably full-time long-term, but we need this taken care of. And so how do you fill that gap? And a lot of times doing that contract work lends itself well to, you can either do it part-time or you can do it full-time, but for a limited amount of time. And so you got into that. Now, you started out, if I understand it right, kind of doing it yourself, picking up the contracts and just being a one-woman show, so to speak. But then it evolved into bringing on more team members and kind of building it out as a more contract for service or business. Is that right?
Yes, yes. And so even the people who work for me are contractors. So they are not employees of Thurman Co., but they are contractors. And so they are at liberty to work projects for me, but also for other companies as well. And so that gives them a lot of flexibility, and they can work as much or as little as they want. And so I think that keeps everybody happy.
So now so this started, you said about 2.5 years ago or so. Now
Yes.
walks through, because you brought on more team members. Did you also kind of go and or expand your network or the people that you might be doing work for? Or how did you kind of go and grow it from, hey, I started this LLC with, kind of so I could qualify for one contract work, to bringing on, multiple people or multiple contract? Kind of walk us through that.
So initially, I hired someone to build a website for me, and that was really my primary means of showing that I was legitimate, I guess. And then a lot of my advertising is word of mouth and referral. I have a really good LinkedIn network, and I had joined some networking groups, and they referred business to me, so that was very helpful. And also being a member of the Project Management Institute. Houston has, I believe, the oldest and the largest chapter of PMI. So that is a network that is very helpful as far as like finding additional PMs when I have a surge, and also help finding additional business too. Now, it takes a lot of effort to drill through all of those opportunities. So a good deal of my time is spent on lead generation and following up on all of that. And then I did eventually purchase a lead generation software that's AI generated. So I've got that to help me as well. And what else?
Well, sounds like there, even if there is more else, that sounds like a pretty good system that you set up, and it went well for you. Now, walk, so over a period of time, so 2.5 years, still fairly early on, but how, what was that span of growth? In other words, you started to do all those different avenues. Was it one where, for the first year or two that you were kind of, meandering along, or it was you yourself and you were on the verge of bankruptcy, or hey, within the first 3 months you had more work than you knew what to do with and are bringing on contractors, or kind of what was that scale of growth?
It's been slow and steady, I would say. And one of the things that helped was certainly just the networking in different groups that I belong to. That certainly helped. And also the PMs that work for me, they're highly skilled and well connected, and I trust them to help. Also, being on different podcasts, that's certainly an avenue to let people know what I do. And then, very recently, I wish I had done this sooner. That's a lesson learned for me, is getting my certification as a woman-owned business. So that is opening up some new avenues as well.
No, I think that makes sense. And, some of those you don't really think about as you get going on. And then some that you come to and you say, oh, it'd be nice if I'd done that earlier, but that's about how business goes. So
Yes.
So now, as we've kind of reached the present day of the founding journey and heard a
Mm-hmm.
great amount of detail, and sounds like it's been a fun journey.
Mm-hmm.
Great time to jump to the question I always like to ask at the end of each episode. So that question is along your journey, there's always times that you could look back and say, oh, if I'd only, and you kind of touched on one, but if I'd only known this earlier, here's a decision I would have made differently, or and it's always hindsight is there's always hindsight bias, and hindsight is 2020. But nonetheless, if you're able to go back to the early days of your business when you're just getting started, what would be one decision you'd make differently?
I would have been a lot more selective when choosing my CPA. The CPA that I have now, I think understands my business and small business in general, and is helping me plan better. And with those kinds of reminders about quarterly taxes and just those sorts of things. Um, so whereas I made a decision about I thought that it was necessary to have a CPA that was in close proximity to me, when really it wasn't. And that kind of hurt me my first year. Whereas now my CPA is actually in Seattle, but that doesn't matter at all. It's her skill and knowledge that matters most, not can I, walk down the street and have a cup of coffee with her.
Hey, I'm right there with you, and we work remotely, with a ton of clients, including you, and you're one of our clients as a disclosure to the audience. But it's interesting, as I think especially it was even pre-COVID, and we were doing it before COVID came along, but it kind of gave people the possibility of saying, hey, I can step back and everything doesn't need to be, it's funny. We have clients that are nearby us that still don't come into the office, and they'd rather just jump on a call or Zoom anyway because it's easier and more convenient for them. And yet it kind of was a bit of a reset. But I like how you hit on, kind of I think sometimes getting that expertise early on and getting the right expertise and getting the right people in the right places, those are always decisions you can look back and say, hey, it would have been so nice to have this person earlier on because it would have been impactful to business. And yet, until you know what the right people are and what the right skill sets and what you need, sometimes it's one where you just have to make those decisions and do the best you can early on. So I think that's a great takeaway. Well, now as we wrap up the episode, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a customer, they want to be a client, they want to be an employee, they want to be an investor, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out to you, contact you, find out more?
Well, you can always contact me through my website, which is thurmanco.com. And then I'm always available on LinkedIn. So if someone wants to message me on LinkedIn, I try to always reply. So those are the two best ways to reach me.
Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, make a new connection, support a great business, and if nothing else, make a new best friend. So with that, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure. Now, for all of you the listeners are out there, if you can help us to share these founding journeys with even more startups and small businesses to help them along their journey of success, you can click share, subscribe, and leave us a review. Definitely helps us to help those small businesses. And on that note, if you along your journey, you ever need help with patents or trademarks or anything else with your startup or your small business, just go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat. We're always here to help. Well, thank you again, Angela, for coming on the podcast, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Thank you.